For like a 400. There's not anything I can pull up for a 400. Please start making your way to your Am I gonna need to plug up your laptop for you? Am I gonna need to plug up your laptop for you?
Howdy.
All right, welcome to our last Senate meeting of the semester. It has been quite a semester, incredibly fast, and I'm excited to see what work we can accomplish tonight and set us up for success starting next semester. So with that, we'll now move into a period of open roll call led by President Patel.
All right, guys. So if you want to come in, please say howdy. SVP Carpenter. Speaker Fleming well. Speaker Blackburn.
Howdy.
Chairman Armstrong. Howdy. Chairman Chu. Chairman Morrison. Howdy. Chairman Gaddis.
Howdy.
Chairman Bass. Chairman Cornell.
Howdy.
Chairman Applewhite.
Howdy.
Chairman Wilhite.
Howdy.
Media Herbert.
Howdy.
Senator Fisher. Howdy. Senator Paulin. Senator James. Senator Tanner Owen. Senator Williams. Senator Roscoe. Senator Bounds. Senator Garcia.
Howdy.
Senator Jusino.
Howdy.
Senator Oberoi. Senator Pham. Senator Sanchez.
Howdy.
Senator Vernon.
Howdy.
Senator Daniel. Senator Sanders. Senator Wright. Senator Hunt.
Howdy.
Senator Gilliard. Senator Maynard.
Howdy.
Senator Moore. Senator Bradley. Howdy. Senator Gaines. Senator Kim. Howdy. Senator Tucker.
Howdy.
Senator Applewhite. Howdy. Senator Burrell. Senator Van Hoosier. Senator Booth. Howdy. Senator Collinsworth. Senator Edgerton. Senator Hughes.
Howdy.
Senator Cozen. Senator Jojo Owens.
Howdy.
Senator Pritzlaw. Howdy. Senator Conrad. Senator Duncan.
Howdy.
Senator Flores. Senator Kowalski. Senator Hoffman.
Howdy.
Senator House. Senator Hurt.
Howdy.
Senator Leahy. Senator Monk.
Howdy.
Senator Norton. Senator Oliphant.
Howdy.
Senator Anna Kate Owens. Senator Puckett.
Howdy.
Senator Ratcliffe. Senator Schaefer. Senator Steele.
Howdy.
Senator Sloan.
Howdy.
Senator Hudson Smith.
Howdy.
Senator Cheats. Senator Horton.
Howdy.
Senator Rasko. There you go.
All right, with that, we'll now move into our invocation and pledges of allegiance led by Cindy Van Cleve on behalf of ASC. Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day and the beautiful class we've been having. Thank you for these students who are in the room that were able to come together and start our university on behalf of God. Lord, I just pray that as they go about the agenda tonight and whatever it is they have to do, Lord, I just pray that they can be gracious with each other and patient as they wait to go home. Lord, I just thank you for everything, and in Jesus' name, amen. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. I pledge allegiance to the existence of the state and under God, one and indivisible.
Now, it's mention statement and have the honor code read by our longest-serving senator, Chairman Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Armstrong's rules and regs. The Texas A&M University Student Senate represents all students in order to advance Texas A&M experience within our university communities through research, legislation, and advocacy in accordance with the core values of our institution. The honor code: an aggie does not lie, cheat, steal, nor tolerate those who do. Thank you.
With that, we will now move into a period of open forum. President Patel, we have room for open forum.
Ryan Woods on behalf of the city of College Station.
We actually do a special presentation.
Okay, so then, sorry. I have Roshna and Laura on behalf of the election.
So 2 minutes to get it done. Howdy, my name is Raksha. My name is Raksha. I'm the election commissioner this year. Just saw me last week. Then kind of did some lines here, but I think this is the election. First thing I want to do is kind of call attention to a point that was made last week that was implied that it's overstepping their role a little bit. The election commission exists to organize and oversee elections consistent with the Ag honor code. That honor code is rooted in fairness and integrity, and I feel like I would be my part as an Aggie or the commissioner by not having to speak. And an opinion is opinion, just about what you want. Sorry, I just gave one. So just to start out with, one of the main issues I have, or the commission had on the act itself, was the general campaign period. I was not sent a copy of the newly revised act, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But like I said last meeting, having the mandatory campaign period after the general campaign period, just raising the issues on their own. For one, at the mandatory candidates meeting, the commissioner can interpret the code and say it to people before campaigning has begun in the present code. However, if you're getting rid of campaign periods, people start campaigning before interpretation of the code are announced. It's going to lead to issues. One, in terms of delegating, giving violations just because people weren't aware of the interpretations. And then secondly, if we're not allowed to give violations prior to the mandatory candidates meeting, that presents an issue as well. If people are acting unethically before that time period, we can't rule on it, and that just leads to a less free and fair election. Additionally, that entire point just makes different commissions and different campaign cycles. There's just a lot of inconsistency there. If one commissioner thinks something, the next commissioner thinks differently. There's not enough time to explain everybody's interpretation before campaign start. So you're causing more inconsistencies between cycles. And then on that same point, the entire last general campaign periods gives a strong advantage to people who are already in SGA and have run before. They're familiar with the regulations. Back up in 1 second.
Motion.
I'm good. In conclusion, I just want you guys to strongly consider what you're doing and to be able to student body and future student leaders who are going to run. Thank you. With that, our presentation is now open for a brief period of question and answer. Do I see any questions for our presentation?
You said, I'm trying to find out the exact prohibition.
But. So long, we talked about how, that there are issues by delaying, like, enforcement of election regulation. After filing a student to be, to every. Do you think the piece is better with that provision or?
I think they said my main point was that interpretation cannot be given until mandatory candidates meeting, because that's what it says in there, after mandatory candidates meeting. Notable interpretation from the commissioner can be given, so people don't know the exact rules or exactly how we're gonna interpret the rules, so. I think it's better, sorry, say your question.
Do you think that the piece understands it's better to have that rule where you wait until after the filing deadline to like I said, whatever it's better for you to go violations at any time?
I think either way that doesn't address the issue of people not knowing the interpretation, doesn't make sense to have a campaign period before the mandatory candidates.
Which is back to work.
Not crazy. I have Senator Burt next.
I guess my question is with regards to the food and drinks are being actually, do you think that it's, you can eat that provision or you're not allowed to do so with it, or you're going to eat it as a current state, but you're not, you're not currently in. I think in my opinion, it's more of like a public safety thing and health concern, to be able to run or closet, you're not allowed to cancel stop repackage, so I think. This is rules that are already being approved. Are just based on that. I don't want to shock to keep with the commission.
I think that time has expired. We think the presenter will retire. For Tim Patel, do we have anyone else for open forum?
I have been Crockett.
We have 2 minutes to do that.
Howdy, Senate. Let's just take your name. So a couple of months ago, you all asked a big question for staff. Bill, review bill that tasked the executive branch to make a report at the last Senate meeting of the year. This is, of course, that meeting. It's the last meeting of the semester before we go to fall break. We decided that potential course of action would be to do the same thing that many other schools in Texas do when it comes to the selection of a particular appointee to the court, and that would be to place the student body vice president on that board, is what the University of Texas does, and work well. Say, I have a long 20-page report on this that I'd be happy to provide to anyone that asks, but it's a lot of paper and state security, that's why we have it. However, I will just briefly step out of my initial topic and say it would be my preference that that change be done in a separate bill from the election refinement act. I do feel sometimes see what that has to do with elections, and I feel that a good idea might die or may live because of its connection to issues that aren't immediately germane. And I'm so grateful for our election commissioner to have the opportunity to also come share their thoughts. I yield my time, or do I have to spritz into the wind?
You're just found out, so that's perfect. Our presenter is now open for a period of question and answer. I see Chairman Morrison.
Chairman Morrison, Finance. Has your opinion on the inclusion of been consistent, or the inclusion in the election refinement been consistent, or has it evolved?
Well, in light of conversations that I've had with the executive cabinet, I think that it's best to separate out the two pieces. But that's a decision that I would welcome Senate to make. I'm not making a statement on the positive or negative qualities of either segment. But, at least from our standpoint, having it as two separate pieces was a finely sharpened point. Opposed to, if we send that, for example, to Tom Rick, and he sees the election climate, he's not going to necessarily read down the bottom and say that, but we're changing something about our appointment process. There's the advisory board, which is the advisory.
Granted,
What prompted you to change it?
Gone.
I see any other questions for our presenter? See Senator Pritzlaw.
So for Pritzlaw, on-campus caucus, would you say that, the clause that you're referring to, that elections piece, is that something that is particularly time sensitive?
Yeah, when's the first meeting in the fall? I don't know if I can ask you. In the spring, can I ask that question?
Please answer in one sentence or less.
Potentially.
The answer is the same. Give me the plus. With that, time has expired and we thank the presenter for his time. So, do you have anyone else for the forum? All right, with that, we'll now move into a special presentation by Brian Woods, the College Station City Manager. $10 to getting your howdy.
Oh, that's howdy.
Hey.
So I don't have a ton of presentation. Normally, I try to get over here whenever you guys, I start to have these, thank you. I'll give you a little bit of background and then I'll open it up for questions. And if you don't have questions, I'm happy to try to spur them. I imagine there's a lot of smart people in this room, probably do have some. So my name is Brian Woods. I'm city manager of College Station. We are a council manager of form of government. Maybe you all know that, but you'd be surprised how many people don't. And what that essentially means is that we have an elected body of 7 members, one being the mayor, and the council members that are at large, so elected by the entire city. My job is to be the chief executive and administrator. I've been here about 6 years now. I worked in the city of Brunswick before that. I'm an engineer by training and come from a construction background. All my experience before that was in the private sector. And I'm also a naval officer first. So I spent a year of my time here deployed. Just during COVID though, so most people didn't even know how we're going. Everybody was going. Again, I'll go mostly towards what you guys want to talk about. I'll say again, I'm not an elected official, so I don't really take stances on things. I don't vote policies through. My job is really to try to get done what they want to get done. I'm here mostly to I can give you feedback and certainly debate you on things or try to give you information, but I'm not the one that ultimately convinced to try to do things. I normally try to give you a pitch on voting. We kind of hit that mark recently, and it seems like you guys had a better turnout. But I'll just reinforce to you that for all the things you do and say and go about them, if you don't vote, you don't carry them through. Not only does it help, it will actually hurt you. Teach people that you're going to say a lot of things and you're going to really be passionate about it, but you won't actually carry it through. You're not only going to miss your opportunity, but you're actually going to hurt yourself and probably go the other way. And it doesn't just go for students, that goes for injuries. But you guys are an important one. And so then my last kind of challenge before I open it up, and you guys are free to ask about anything, answer the best I can, tell you what I can, is it is important that you are active. I appreciate that you all are here serving your university. The officer in me sees a bunch of younger folks and wants to also try to give you some unsolicited leadership advice. So I'll do that too. Always check and remember why you're here and who you are serving. It's very, very easy for the world to tell you to serve yourself. Remember that you're here for a bigger reason than that. I appreciate that you're here doing that. I know there's a lot of people at this university and all around the world who aren't giving their time. So very appreciate that you're willing to do that, and want to give you kind of the last charge, which is it is important that your voices be heard and that you have these conversations. You have done exceptionally well. I've had the good fortune to work with several of you, and you have really good representation that comes in peace. for this often, but remember even more so than your impact now, while you may only be here for a short period of time, there will always be someone here who you represent. Long after I'm gone, long after you're gone, there will be students here, and you are now representing their voice. So remember that, not only, are you here to serve the people who live here now, but you're here to serve the people that are gonna come to school here many, many years. So I will pause there and take questions, and if not, I'll try to bring up exciting topics that I'll make you ask questions. If you'll just tell me when the time is over, and I'll sit down.
Are you ready for questions?
Yep.
All right, with that, Center is now open for a period of questions. After the first one, please direct your questions to Pro Tem Bertel. Do I have any questions? I see Chair Gaddis.
Chair Gaddis, Marketing and Arts Caucus. I wanted to ask kind of what your perspective is with the Northgate and all that's occurring. I was kind of wanting to see what the students are going to do with that as well.
Great question. That's one I would have hit you up on if you didn't ask. So lots of different things going on in Northgate. I remember one of the first times that I came and spoke here to the Senate, I think you just given the resolution, some concern about it. And again, I'm not a policymaker, so ultimately it's not my vote. But I would tell you that obviously Northgate has changed a lot and will continue to change over the years. I think there is a few different elements. One, I think we want to see the pieces, the kind of atmosphere of Northgate preserved to the best that we can. Now, from a governmental standpoint, how much you lean into that is a question, right? So I think that, but overarching, there's a lot of really great new things in College Station, but Northgate is unique, right? It has changed over time too. We kind of joked people recently, we're kind of giving the keep Northgate, and if you look back historically, if you go even 20 years ago, only 10 bars down. So we were like, well, what's the place where you stop? And so what I think we want to do is we want to say, hey, there's lots of great things. Let's think about what do we want it to be. So some of that's going to be in the past, some of it's going to be. We definitely are going to see more student housing there, intensification. Not a bad thing. We actually have working with TxDOT, working with the university to try to get some physical, pedestrian, and bike connections across university, which I think would be great for the development of that area. It's something we want to see more of around town. So part of it will be seeing what the development looks like over there. There are more towers planned, more development coming, so we're looking at that. We obviously are looking at our property right now, and then in the context of everything else we're talking about, how do we utilize that to do the things we want to do. And then finally, most immediately, spent a lot of time talking about this, but there is a growing safety concern when it comes to things. So if you're in public safety, talk about it. We talked about that for 2 years. We've had given folks in the Senate and city government an opportunity to go out with our PD and experience what they have. If that's something you guys want to do, we're happy to facilitate that. I think what you'll find is there's some alarming stuff going on down there, sometimes unbeknownst to everyone. And also, hopefully, what's really important is to find out that our folks are down there to help you. So sometimes I was in college too, concerned about, hey, I don't want MIP, I don't want to DUI. We know those get down there. I think if you ever go down with our folks, or you'll see that they utilize a lot of judgment. And what we really want, first and foremost, is for you and anyone else to know that if something is not good, you should come to us. We don't ever want somebody to say, well, yeah, but I'm 19, I've had a couple of drinks, I've got this issue with this other person, but I don't want to go talk to police officers and feel like I'm not beat. We want to make people understand that we're there to help everybody first and foremost. So that's a short version, a lot going on down there, but I will say we are trying to get our arms around and help guide it the way the community wants to go. At the same time, there's a lot of pressure from both people coming from bars and also just the development, because we are now home to the largest university in the nation, and you guys don't know, about 80% of the students in A&M live in College Station students.
Thank you. Senator Hurt next.
Senator Caucus. I guess my biggest thing is such a big greater information in the College Station area. What are some of the council where you have in order to accommodate the transportation?
Yeah, so one, we talked about actually physical connections, right? So because we've got such a concentration in Northgate, how do we get across university without having to cross university? And there's been a lot of conversation about that. Even when I first got here, the idea was they were going to drop university down, right? And you're just gonna be able to walk across it, which is super awesome. But after we spent $1 billion and we all got fired because it would have been a complete nightmare, like maybe it would work. So I think part of the thing is how do we physically connect?
Speaker, I was
State your motion.
I know they said the period. That's second.
The motion has been made and seconded. It is undebatable but undebatable as to time. Must require a majority vote and do this via general consent. Are there any objections to the motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass.
So physical connections, and then we've just moved into a period because of the size of our community where we are now having to pay for Brazos Transit, which is our busing system. And that's another thing we're looking at is how do we extend and provide a better busing system? You have a great busing system with A&M, but we've got to integrate that even more. That's a heavy investment. So some of it is a mindset shift between building bigger roads, one, because we're running out of room for bigger roads. And then also how do we get people on those transportation systems? So that is going to be a huge one over the next decade.
And Senator Steele next.
Senator Steele, maybe a little bit of a broad question. Wondering what yours and Mike's and the city strategy is going to be regarding densification in the future.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is, again, we know Northgate is kind of going, and then we have done, you guys were party it all to the northeast, the university plant. So we see it probably pulling down. Obviously, you've seen, it hasn't been brought up, we have no more than 4. So I'm talking about the densification part. I think the other part of it is, what's the counter to that? Part of the plan, even when you talk about no more than 4, that it's not as widely discussed what was. Now that there are large areas of property where there is more density allowed than there was before. So it's easy to talk about density when we think about big high rises, but I think we're also trying to look at where is incremental density happening, where you have kind of no housing those things. That's a place where obviously students have played a big role. I think that is one that will be the more interesting piece because while what we see generally is while some of that can help the student population, as you guys know, as the student population pushes in, when you deal with kind of the working class population, that creates a challenge there too. Sometimes they work really well together. Sometimes the same things that benefit student housing benefit that. So I think from a policy perspective, there's going to continue to be that discussion. And I think more at this point, barring what may happen in the state, and that will reign if they do something different, it will be more about where do we allow more types of housing and where do we allow this. And I think that will be the biggest conversation. And obviously, because we have the university here, it's going to want to be as close to that as possible.
Thank you.
And Senator Fisher next.
Senator Fisher calls back. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us. In your mind and in your role, in the next 5 years, as College Station continues to grow, Texas A&M continues to grow, what can we do to protect the values that make this place so special?
Yeah, well, I think you've got a president right now, and a lot of people, not just the president, but who really value that. And I will tell you from the city standpoint, lots of things you have to do to make the train run on time, right? No pun intended. But I think it is truly talking about what does make it special, and then trying to understand, physically, policy perspective, what has done that, and stick to it. I think it's one of the easiest things to master. Is everyone will come and tell you that this is why something is great. So I think some of it is trying to get a consensus about what those things are and how do we maintain it while we grow. I think the way that the university is going about it is a really good way to go. I know everybody may not agree with all of it, but the university is the sun and everything else rotates around. So I think the more we work together to kind of stick to that same vision, the better it will be. The challenge is you have a lot of different groups, a county, 2 cities, a university, and others that are in here. So I think the more unified we are, the more we work together, the better chance you have of kind of keeping what makes A&M and College Station look great.
I see Senator Owens.
Senator Owens on campus caucus. So with we've been talking about the growth of the city stuff. And when you say, we surround or A&M is a sun. We do have a lot of student population at College Station and Bryan. But do y'all have any initiatives or ideas for how to improve the connections and kind of prevent isolation for people who don't go to school or live far off campus.
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge, right? And, so yes, we have some specific programs like that. When it, relates to housing, and some transportation, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but try to use the ATV bus service, it stops at 5 o'clock, right? So if you're somebody who's working, that's not really that useful. If you're trying to go to the grocery store, it's really good. The programs we have are less widespread. Now, again, one, I think, positive offshoot of kind of some of the more important conversation for us is housing, which, you know, does benefit other people. So I think there's some pieces that I think one of the other challenges is that you can't just think about College Station properly. You want to, right? I don't ever want to be the person who runs an organization and say that it's really hard for somebody unfortunately to live in the city that they work. But because of the way we're laid out, we do have to think about things more regionally. The same transportation problems we have, students are amplified for people outside of it. So I think some of it is going to be, you know, where we're going to have people, how do we get there? Biggest problem we have is where people can afford to live, is it's very difficult for them to get in on campus. And again, A&M plays a big part of that, because a lot of that, it's not only the most students, it is also the most kind of working class jobs that happen around here. This is our main industry. So we got all of those people trying to get to one place. So again, we're not going to build our way out of it. We've got to figure out from a policy perspective. And again, I am a big proponent of density, but that pushes on people as well. So it's going to have to be a balance. And some of that I will say too is based on how much A&M grows. And so the proposal that A&M kind of pumps the brakes on some of the growth and lets us kind of build up to it. Done.
All right, with that, time has expired, but we thank Mr. Woods for his time. State your motion.
I would like to move old business below the, new business.
Seeing that motion has been made and seconded, it is debatable, indivisible, and will require a 2/3 vote. We will now move into debate on this motion. Debate again on this motion. I saw her shoot first.
I'll make this quick. Howdy. Chair Chu, Student Services.
Yes, did you?
Since the motion was made, but the reason as to the motion is not yet understood, isn't it, debate for first? Or
It's my understanding that we always start with debate against the motion. I will defer to my rules and regs chair for confirmation on that.
my intuition is yes.
State your point.
The maker of the motion has right to debate. So if he wishes to debate for the motion, so order.
Okay, thank you for that point. I am still deferring to my rules and regs chair for confirmation. So we're just gonna keep the confirmation.
I know.
Alright, so you can take your seats and considering as what Chairman Armstrong, looked at as well as my decision, we are going to continue with what our precedence is in this case. And that we will start with debate against, we will reevaluate in the future if needed, but this is what we are doing as standing rules for this moment. Chairman Chu, you have the floor.
All right, thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, Chair Chu, Student Services. So essentially, reason why I'm debating again is because on the old business for the period bill, we have heat over here and they're like non-regs, they're as in like, they are not in the Senate. And I don't want to have them wait like all night long for this one bill that they're here for. Right, we don't usually get, right, like students just come and like help, or not help, but support their own bills as well. So if we can kind of get them first, that way they can go, take care of their regular student lives and not senators. And that would be good. I yield to Senator.
Madam Speaker, I move to amend, I guess the motion, rather than moving old business to the end of the agenda, flipping item B. Second.
I think that motion has been made and seconded. It again is amendable and debatable and will require a 2/3 vote to amend the original motion. We'll start debate against this motion. Do I see debate against this motion? Seeing none, we will move to debate for this motion. Do I see any debate for this motion? Seeing none, we'll now move to second round debate against this motion. Do I see debate against this motion? Seeing none, does the opinion of the chair of the debate become one-sided? We'll now move into period of voting. All attempts to this be a voice vote. All those in favor of the amendment to switch item A and B, instead of moving old business to below new business, please say aye. All those opposed? It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it. And this amendment does pass. We are now still on the original motion of the deviation from the agenda, still in the first round of debate against Chairman Chu. Did you yield?
I do.
The seat on the floor is yielded to Pritzlaw. You still hold the floor.
Madam Speaker, I yield.
Seat on the floor has been yielded to. We'll now move into debate for this motion. Do I see debate for this motion? Seeing none, we'll now move into second round debate against this motion. Do I see debate against this motion? Seeing none, we'll now move into second round debate for this motion. Do I see debate for this motion? Seeing none, it is the opinion of the chair that debate has become one-sided. We'll now move into a period of voting. Again, on the original motion with the amendment, will do this via a voice vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. All those opposed? It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it, and this motion does pass. All right, with that, and this was on me as a clerical error, we will now move into the approval of the 11/06/2024 meeting minutes. We'll attempt to do this via general consent. Do I see any objection to the approval of the meeting minutes? Seeing none, the meeting minutes are approved. With that, we'll now move into a period of old business. And seeing the change in the agenda, we will be starting with SB 7707, the providing emergency resources and on-campus dispensers for the period bill. If the authors will please come to the board. So 10 minutes of presentation beginning at half.
Howdy, Senate. All right, so we're back up here for the second reading of this piece. We made some really good changes in committee, and I'll let Pete take it away first.
Okay, so how you work the last time we were here, we're doing a project, we part of HEAT, we're moving on to campus team. And what we focus on is providing free menstrual products on campus. And we're able to do this through a couple of locations, but we are only a small org. So since starting this project, we've received overwhelming support, but feedback that this is the campus wide. And since we're not able to do this, we are calling for a bill for Texas A&M to create products throughout the campus.
Yep, and just to go over some of the changes in committee, Chairman Chu, as well as the members of the committee and the members of Key, I think made some really good changes, condensing a lot of the information throughout the whereases, and making sure that our asks can be enacted, are very concise and directed towards what we've actually been advocating for. So we talked to sustainability services since the last talk. We talked to university health services. Both of those conversations were very productive. I think administration is willing to help support us in this initiative, and just trying to find the best way forward. Whether that is more student-run option and supporting a student organization to help fund and find the locations for these dispensaries and help build them, and working with administration to get awareness out and help find some funding avenues, or whether that means trying to find a university partner to help do it outright. So these conversations are ongoing. We'll be working on it more over the break. And that there's a lot of what happened in the committee. We also changed the title to make it a little more direct, kind of to the point, because a lot of what we're advocating for is kind of these dispensers and bathrooms. So we came up with this period acronym to be a little more to the point and communicates the idea of the bill a little bit better. So the main reason we're going to pass this out tonight is to get this on the desks of administrators, so that way when we come to the conversation, we can talk about the ideas in the bill, so that we're not coming in blind, and that they're aware that the student senate and somebody's events. Look forward to hearing your questions. One thing before we get into debate is there's some stats in there lower down the whereas is related to petition and a Google form. I have a small amendment updating some of those numbers, but that's it.
All right, with that, the authors are now open for a creative question and answer. Do I see any questions for the authors? Seeing none, we thank them for their time. With that, we will now move into debate on this piece, starting with debate against this piece. Seeing debate against this piece. Seeing none, we'll now move into the first on debate for this piece. I see debate for this piece. I see Senator Fritz-Loff.
Madam Speaker, Senator Fritz-Loff on this caucus. I have a motion that I'm going to send to Pro Tem Purcell.
Seeing a motion has been made, is it?
I'll send it to him and then that'll get reflected.
What is your motion?
The motion is going to be in whereas 6 to change. March 2024 had over 160 responses to November 2024 had over 220 responses, and whereas 10 to change October 23rd had 964 signatures to November 2024 had nearly 1,000.
Seeing the motion has been made and now seconded, it is debatable and amendable, and we will get these changes reflected and then move to consider the motion.
So we're at 6 versus.
As it was. Words.
As we are getting this continually reflected in the document, we will now move into debate on this motion. Also, debate against this motion. I see debate against this motion. Seeing none, we'll now move into debate for this motion. Do I see any debate for this motion? Seeing none, we'll now move into second round debate against this motion. Do I see any debate against this amendment? Seeing none, it is the opinion of the chair that it has become one-sided. We'll now move into a period of voting. Let's do it via a voice vote. All those in favor of the amendments that are currently reflected in the document, please say aye. All those opposed? It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it. This motion does pass. With that, we're still in the first round debate for this piece. So I see Senator Pitslaw, you still have the floor.
I yield the floor.
Seeing the floor has been yielded to, we'll now move into the second round debate against this piece. So I see debate against this piece. Seeing none, we'll now move into the second round debate for this piece. So I see debate for this piece. Seeing none, is the opinion of the chair, debate has become one-sided. We'll now move into a period of voting. This will be done via a standing vote led by Pro Tem Patel. All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 7707, the Providing Emergency Resources and On-Campus Dispensers Bill, please rise if you're able. All those opposed? By a vote of 35-0, this piece does pass. Congratulations to the authors, and with that, we'll now move into considering Senate Act 7707, the Elections Refinement Act. If the authors will please come to the board. We'll have 10 minutes beginning at hours.
How do you say it? Chair Armstrong, rules and regs. So, the Election Refinement Act, it passed through my committee this past Thursday. There was thoughtful and robust conversations. We had representatives from all three branches of the student government in attendance, as well as members of the Rules and Regs Committee and other senators. We had a great time. We talked long into the night about all matters relating to elections. And we reached some pretty sweeping edits that we made to the piece. There were also, just to foreshadow a bit, be some more amendments coming in debate that we'll talk about in a while. But we will just kind of run through and tell you what the committee changed. If you have the doc in front of you, the red letters are the original changes to the code that were presented to you 2 weeks ago, and the purple letters are what we did in the committee. So that's kind of the way the color code and keep things straight. For that, Luke, do you want to take us through what we did?
So those amendments are going to be noted with the purple text, and so you'll see that the red, just for the second play, the red text, second round, and the third round. But so in the purple text, we made an amendment to whereas to while making efforts to increase voter turnout. So then, we consider the entirety of Article 3 for the purpose of striking the finance forms, and then as well as recognition of the expenditure statement. We struck the finance forms in that mention as well, and we added information while striking the finance forms. We would do struck the bit about financial reports, struck about how utility support is submitted, struck about social media purposes, struck a couple lines here about the debates. Struck 2 days and times for forums for to just make it where it's as necessary as the commission actually have struck the mention of flyers. Just striking a bit about distributing food and beverages while containing candy, struck about off-campus campaign. Fire trucks and stuff now relevant. Renumbered some things and added bonfire remembrance and bush demonstrations. There was some conversation of the executive students decided the committee's decision is that it's just because it's struck a bit about offering rides. It didn't quite make sense in the context. Also, as well as the prohibition campus, as well as striking the internet activity with monitoring transaction given the finance struck in the second round. Rewrote the website about it. That was the previous website that was used, or that was something. Struck the duplicate of major artists in my election set twice. And that's about rename finds the term sense, as well as restructure the system previous to the violations, which was 100%. Warning fine false. And then also we added a phrase that I'm going to give you official or not, but that there were previously concerns or expect, well, how would you do a violation? So they only wait to consider and if it's a problem, striking from violation table, striking all of the section on finance, auditing, as students voting for will be subject to a sanction by state and federal others. And numbering of the following. That's it.
Anybody else have anything to add about these? Okay, there was a lot there, and the conversations were long and arduous, quite detailed. I had a blast, but that's why I'm on my chair. Would love to answer any questions you have, and then we'll debate about it. But with that, we are open to questions, Madam Speaker.
The authors are now open for a period of question and answer. Any questions for the authors? I see Senator Applewhite first. And please direct questions to President Patel.
Senator Applewhite for school. So can you explain once again the current standing for the budgets are? Why y'all change that decision? Still support that decision.
Absolutely. So, at the committee meeting, where we landed, as it stands currently, pending debate, is that there are no budgets for major races. That student president races, no budget, whatever you want. We reached that conclusion through discussion of the committee, and upon further discussion with other students, since then, I personally am going to plan on amending that in debate to reinstate budgets, but at a higher number than they currently stand. Up until now, the major race budget has been $1,500. I plan to amend that to $3,000. But currently, pending that amendment, there is no budget on major race budgets.
I see an questions for IC Senator Patel.
Senator Putzlaff on campus caucus, we can get to this committee, but what are your thoughts on the clause that strikes the rule disallowing red being part of campaign materials?
I personally, this is actually coming where me and Luke disagree. But so I want you to answer as well. I'm pretty sure that's legal, but my personal opinion is that I would like to see red disallowed from campaigning. I think in the same way that it would be largely improper if President Welch were to endorse him to be candidate. Red is not able to do so, he's a dog. However, I don't think while President Welch will self-regulate, probably not endorse somebody because he recognizes the merits of that. Red is not able to do so, and I don't think as we continue into the future will self-regulate themselves. against that. So my personal feelings is that, Rick cannot be allowed to campaign. Luke, would you like to present?
I would also speak, I think that, that's, and I think like. That should be able to. Choosing. That being said, I would entertain a discussion of this. Debate. You can do it.
Any other questions for the author? Seeing none, we thank the authors for their time. All right, with that. With that, we'll now move into Bates. Buckle up. All right. Please state your motion.
Chairman Morrison, Finance, I move to amend the fee schedule. Very sensitive. Doing a variety of things, being reinstating as well as students. So again.
See that motion has been made, it is debatable and is amendable and will require a 2/3 vote. We will give us just a moment to make sure everything is reflected properly in the act, like you all have reference to at the end of the drive. And then we'll go ahead and get started with debate.
Okay.
You don't have anything. According to Pro Tech Patel, to help make things go a bit quicker, there is now a fully amended version with the amendment that Chairman Morrison just made within its address. So still the same folder, same location, just a different. And with that, as Pro Tech Patel continues to make sure that all the changes are reflected, we'll now enter debate on this motion. We will start debate against this motion. So seating debate against this amendment. Apologies.
Speaker. I have a motion.
Please state your motion.
Senator Griswold on campus caucus. I move for a 2-minute recess so I can read these amendments.
Second.
Seeing that motion has been made and seconded, it is debatable and amendable as to time. We'll now move into debate on this motion. Debate against this motion. Seeing none, we'll now move to first one debate for this motion. Seeing debate for this motion. Seeing none, we'll now move into second round debate against this motion. Seeing debate against this motion. Do you have a motion? Do you want resignation? We'll now move into second round debate for this motion. Seeing debate for this motion.
Speaker, I have a point of question.
Yes, please state your point.
Actually, it'd be a parliamentary.
State your point.
Chairman Rules and Regs, upon further investigation, motion to take a recess. I suggest we.
With that debate is concluded, we'll now move into a period of voting alternates via general consent. Are there any objections to the motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass. Please be back in your seats at 8:04.
Yes.
I love it. What's that? We used to do it every year. We'll make some fun. Right now we're gonna put it on. I would like to refer to it. It's like. I would probably do that. Yeah. Well, I'm not.
All right, seeing as now all amendments are reflected and you've had an opportunity to review, we'll now move this debate on the amendments. Okay, let's start with the debate against these amendments. So I see any debate. I see Senator Owens. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, you have 2 minutes, 30 seconds beginning at time. to get in.
Karen and ag and life science for this, so I am going to be strongly against this amendment. Primarily because we need to let the free market work. Why are we gonna put expenses on it? $300, $3,000, who cares? If you wanna spend $10,000 on your SVP campaign, I say go for it. You're probably gonna lose. This year, you spent $11 on this campaign in this year. Congrats to you. I spent $0 on my campaign. I'm here. It doesn't take money to win. And also, fines, 15% on a fine for a tier 1 violation. Seriously, guys, this is where we get the op research. This is where we get cases sent to J court. Just do away with it. Let's make all of our lives easier. Let's make the people running the lives easier. Let's make senators' lives easier. Let's make student class presidents' lives easier. Just do away with it. Let the free market work. If you want to spend money, spend money. If you don't, that's fine. I yield the floor.
Seeing that the floor has been yielded to, well, now it's the first round debate for this amendment. This is debate 4. I saw Chairman Armstrong first. You'll have 2 minutes and 30 seconds beginning at county.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, hi, Senate. Chairman Armstrong, R&R. If you were present at the Rules and Reg meeting, you may be questioning. Chairman Armstrong, why are you here debating for such an amendment that undoes what you stumped so hard for in the R&R meeting? I did in fact stump really hard to lift budgets in the meeting. However, I came into possession of new information since the committee meeting that would suggest that, the foundational argument that I would make, which was that, by and large, successful SPP campaigns wildly overspend the budget currently. And so a rule that doesn't do what it says it does should be removed. Now, since then, came into more information from talking to more people who've been involved in all of the successful pursued by president campaigns in the last 4 years, and was informed that by and large, those campaigns did not overspend to the extent at which I first believed. And so, with that being said, I was much more inclined to raise budgets. I think we all agree is necessary, but not quite to such an extent as the good senator before me would suggest. I think if you allow people to spend whatever they want, they will. I will disagree though with the idea that you don't need money to win. I think with Senate races, that's been proven. I've never spent that on my campaigns along with certain senator. However, I think we see in the last 4 years, candidates who run for SVP and don't spend much money are spectacular flops in their campaign. They don't go anywhere. And every successful campaign of the last 4 years, at least that I've seen, has spent quite a bit of money on their campaign. You have to build banners, you have to get videos made, and you have to make t-shirts. These are all just like basic requirements to run a successful campaign. And so I would suggest that while money is necessary, we do not need candidates spending as much as they want. I think they will. And so I think we should limit it to $3,000, which bumps it up more than 1,500, solve some of the problems that we're seeing without causing some of those that we discussed today. I would love to hear more debate on this, but I'm firmly on team 3,000. Thank you. I yield to.
Seeing that the floor has been yielded to, we'll now move into the second round debate against this motion. I see Senator Huckabee. So 2 minutes and 30 seconds beginning at county.
Yeah, Sarah, I wanted to make sure I call that order. I'm thoroughly in agreement with the good senator that preceded me in opposition of this amendment. I think creating an unenforceable mechanism is never strong. I think you look at the precedent set in the judicial court, it's almost impossible to get finance violations to stick in the J court. This has been proven time and time again. There's a lot of really strong issues with just the fact that, hey, what are we gonna do when someone does overexpend, but it's impossible to prove? Okay, because I've seen a lot of campaigns do this substantially. But the great thing about this is I believe in our electorate. Our electorate has not voted for a campaign that tries to breach the rules. Okay, so yes, while successful SVP campaigns, not really overexpense that because you have people with good character that are trying to stay above reproach from breaking the rules. If this is not a rule, I think this would be able to open the floodgates for actual democracy and actual good campaigns to be around. I also think that value added and value spent are two very different things. Value added comes from having friends that are going to do incredibly high quality videos that you don't have to pay for, or you pay for under the table, which I know for a fact has happened a lot of times in even successful SVP campaigns. So all this to say, these are incredibly unenforceable mechanisms, and I just think that being able to make this free open market is something that I'm always going to support, because why are we going to have rules if it's impossible to enforce? With that, I yield.
Seeing that the floor has been yielded to, we will now move into the second round of debate for this amendment. Do I see debate for this amendment? I saw Senator Hurt first. So 2 minutes and 30 seconds beginning at House.
County Senate.
Okay.
Senator Hurt, Kansas Caucus. So I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. Just to refute a little bit of the from the other senator, I think that dogging on the Jay Court for not being able to have a mechanism to actually punish those individuals for violating rules. I think that is just judicial court policy. Actually hearing it out, that process is same as normal, actually part of the checks and balances of this equation. I think that's attacking their impartiality, and I think that's unfair. But going into the second point, there is actually a mechanism to prevent this cap. We have the budget caps at $303,000. So if you're breaching these rules of spending corporate amount of money, well, that is widely noticeable. We're actually going to have that breach as well. I think this is able to actually allow for better equitability for running for office. We were reminded earlier today, but with our guest speaker, who are we serving? We're serving the students. And if we're wanting to have inclusivity, that means not higher budgets. As other senators are trying to say, why don't have a capitalist idea of free markets? Woo! But capitalism and democracy aren't the same thing. Democracy is allowing individuals to have free and fair elections. Now, if you're able to buy yourself an election, does that sound free nor fair? The answer is no. And that's why I think you have to refute the other senators' claims and stand for democracy with equitability on the issue. Now, I think this legislation allowed for that cap, as someone who argued immensely at the committee meeting for trying to bring in voices, particularly for first-generation college students who don't come from the higher socioeconomic backgrounds. I speak from personal experience. If I was able to get bought out for running an election, I would not run an election. It's not smart. If we're talking about voter and candidate behavior, when you have high caps of money, people drop out. And I think that's why we're actually trying to have a substantial increase while also not maintaining that over exuberance where we're having infinite amount of money to put in. So I think fighting for that inclusivity, I think in order to have just possibly an alternative amendment, maybe stop the grinding perhaps through food and beverages. I think that could possibly do that to people, and I'm not going to make an amendment on that later. But I think currently as the legislation does, it protects that inclusivity and equitability for candidates to run for office without preventing that overcap side of that. It also allows for JCORP to actually have a substantial part of our process where we're actually able to hash out these rules and regulations using the Bible JCORP. If we got rid of these finance ones, I'm sorry, I feel like JCORP would be slightly less boring. Like they have less cases, and if I was on them side, I would want to be entertained. So I think to say
I've been once.
so keep the amendments. With that, yeah, thank you.
All right, with that, we'll now move into the second round of debate. Third round of debate, yes. This amendment. Yes. I saw Chairman Armstrong first.
Madam Speaker, I move to extend the period of debate by 1 round of shot.
The motion is made and seconded. It is undebatable.
I believe it's
Debatable and amendable as to rounds of debate. Okay, we're not going to debate on this motion. We're going to see and debate against this motion. Seeing none, we'll now move to the first time debate for this motion. Do I see debate for this motion? Seeing none, we'll now move into debate against this motion. Do I see debate against this motion? I see Senator Applewhite. We'll now move in, it is the opinion of the chair that debate has become one-sided, we'll now move into community voting. Both sent to us via general consent. Do I see any objection to the motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass. The debate has been extended by 1 round, as totaling now.
Yes.
4 rounds. And Chairman Armstrong has the floor.
I yield to Senator Steele. Yes.
So 2 minutes and 30 seconds getting at money.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Senator Steele off campus caucus. I'll try and be quick. I think my main issue with this amendment is simply the fact that the point of bringing acts to committee is so that we can do those amendments in committee. This is a 28-page act, and there is a long list of different amendments applying to various different topics that I think we need to discuss thoroughly. And I do not think that this current meeting is the place to do that. I believe this should be moved back to committee and discuss more if we're going to change big parts of it, like bringing back budget, bringing back finance. I think if we're going to do that, we should bring this back to committee and have longer discussions on the matter that we can't have in this setting. And with that, I yield to Senator Applewhite.
Madam Speaker, I have a point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, please state your point.
The good senator's speech before was not germane to this amendment, but therefore, the good senator before his speech was not germane to this amendment, therefore the debate was out of order and the round closes.
Point of parliamentary inquiry, since that already been yielded to me.
Point of parliamentary inquiry. Chairman Armstrong holds your rights, the senator does not say his name delegation.
Yes, I have.
Point of order. My bad.
He was trying to do me.
Okay. Senator Applewhite, I am sorry you are out of order. However, I do note your point, and while I do agree with Chair Armstrong on that, we need to make sure our debate is remaining germane. Since the floor had already been yielded to Senator Applewhite, we will continue with this round. So please keep your debates relevant to the motion. You have 1 minute and 39 seconds beginning at money.
Howdy, Senator Applewhite, very cool. I will try my best to keep this remaining to the issue at hand. What I also just want to bring back is that I don't think this should be an I gotcha mentality. What we do get by having all of these finance issues that are really unenforceable, there's a lot of vagueness. It's not as clear as it needs to be. There are a lot of questions of what has to be expensed and what doesn't have to be expensed. It breeds a mentality that we've seen time and time again of student campaigners wanting to get the other team and tear them down. That's not what I think this code needs to build up. I think it's just way too vague, and there's really not enough enforcement mechanisms because there's so many things that cannot be proven that they were expensed, like paying for videos, like paying for campaign staff events. With that, I yield to Senator Fisher.
I think Senator Fisher has been yielded to. You have 39 seconds beginning at money.
Senator Fisher, college guy, County Senate, I'll be quick. I really reject the notion that when we're talking about democracy, we're talking about capitalism. That's not what the good senators reported they were arguing against this amendment we're mentioning. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the fact that the 2 presidential candidates in the United States elections spent way over an insane amount of money compared to what we're talking about. And one of those candidates lost even with spending that much money. Money doesn't win an election, your connections to your ability to connect with people. I also really want to push back on the notion that the good R&R chair said that he changed his mind because they weren't spending as much money over the budget secretly as he originally
Please
thought.
talk about the ones.
They were still spending money over the budget, and there's not a really great way to enforce this policy. Thank you.
With that, we will now move into the next round debate for the seat in debate 4. I've had Chairman Armstrong first. Yes, it's your point.
Senator Applewhite, the rule is it through this last Senate meeting that this can get passed before or in order to institute these rules ahead of the election.
This is the last Senate meeting of the semester. Yes, it is, to my understanding, there is no clear rule saying that election regulations must be passed at this meeting. However, that is the common courtesy and precedence that we are really trying to enforce.
Personal privilege.
Yes, briefly.
Center out what visual, I believe there is someone there that says it has to happen a certain number of days. I'm not sure what the number of days, about 5 weeks ahead of when the polling opens. I can get that code for you, but I believe there is someone out there that says, I'm just putting that out there. And we'll pull up this.
Yes, that is noted, thank you, but again, just reemphasizing my point, this is the last meeting of the semester, and so any, like I said, from the first meeting of this semester, I'm sure Chairman Armstrong can back me up on this. In that all major coaches were expected to happen this semester, and I still hold true to that expectation. Chairman Armstrong, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Armstrong, rules and regs. Hi, Senate. All right. We've done a lot of back and forth. We've heard from various people who have very strongly held opinions, one way and the other. That wasn't a joke. I think the case that I go back to, as an analogy, just like a good senator before did, is appealing to the national electoral system. I think to a landmark Supreme Court case in Citizens United, which allows for large corporations to donate as much money as they would like to as an expression of their free speech as people. I personally view this as quite detrimental, as it drastically increased the amount of money that can be spent in our presidential elections. What the good speaker I think gets wrong previously is that the amount of money that both presidential candidates spent and one still lost indicates that spending that much money was not necessary to win. I think if one of the presidential candidates spent $5,000 versus many millions of dollars, that candidate would certainly lose by much larger margins. I think the same holds true to suit by president elections. If I spend $5 on a suit by president election, I don't have banners or signs or t-shirts or paid social media ads or anything like that. I won't be able to build a team, let alone campaign effectively. You can do that on Senate because nobody physically campaigns for Senate. But they do physically campaign for suit by president election. So I think the notion that you don't have money within a suit by president election is naive at best and misleading at worst, and I think it's incorrect. Now, moving on, I think to say that I changed my mind based on the notion of how much people are spending, let me put some fine point numbers on that. Previously, the understanding was that FDP candidates that were successful were spending in the range of $6 to $7 to $9 grand with a budget limit of $1,500. Now, past that, come to find out, number, depending on who you ask, is probably closer to 3. With hard campaigning materials like banners and t-shirts falling under $1,500. The rest of that going to things like gummies, right? Now, depending on who you ask, should those things be financed? Probably. But that's very different from spending $7,000 or $9,000. What I'm seeing here is that the budget restrictions work, at least to the extent that they limit candidates from spending $3 grand on banners, right? On physical campaign materials, limiting them to some extent. Now, look to the national system as an example of where the Wild West is not a good model for electoral finance. Thank you.
With that, we are now entering the fourth and final round of debate. We will start the debate against items in our.
I consider your upload visual. I just do want to say, yes, you can say anything you want about the Wild West. But as we look into precedents over the past couple of years, I know one particular campaign that spent way over the budget, even on hard materials, probably close to about $6 to $7 grand, compared to another candidate that spent $3 grand. Once again, this proves that the system is broken. People are overexpensing, even if it's just by double. That's still double the price. But going back to my main point about that person who spent $6 to $7 grand, he lost. He lost by a large majority. So this proves that, like the current system, money doesn't take. It doesn't take money to win. It takes being connected. It takes
supporting the Aggie values, and it takes having good ideas. That's what's gonna win, not money. So don't vote based on the fact that you are scared that money is gonna take over, because it's been proven that that will not happen. I can assure you of that. With that, I yield to the floor.
The floor has been moved to now move into our final debate for this amendment. I saw Senator Coates first. You'll have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to begin that.
Senator Coates on campus projects. So right now, my big concern with having unlimited spending for student body freeze is that obviously outside interest groups and PACs are gonna get involved. I think that's something we can see very clearly in our own presidential election, when we see billionaires and PACs that are the ones deciding the outcome of the election. Look, it's pretty clear that it's easy to buy a seat here, and if you're gonna say the price is 10 grand, there are plenty of organizations on both sides of the aisle that would be more than happy to put that down. And so if that's something that you want, if you want, you know, the student senate at A&M to be something that can be bought by political parties, then vote against this amendment. But if you want to make this a school where we have a student body where we're college kids who can just live and vote free of the interferences that we have in the school, then you should vote in support of this amendment. I know my time is clear.
Seeing that the floor has been yielded to, that concludes debate. We will now move into voting on this amendment. We will vote via a standing vote led by Pro Tem Patel. All those in favor of passing this amendment, please rise if you are able. All those opposed? By a vote of 27-3, this amendment does pass. With that, we had never actually entered debate on this piece, and so we will now enter the first round of debate against this piece. That was. Hey, order. We're going to Senator Monk. Senator Monk, please state your motion. The motion has been made and seconded. It is undebatable, but mental, I guess, technically. And will require a 2/3 vote for attendance via general consent. Do I see any objections to the consideration of opening sponsorship? Seeing none, this motion does pass. Senator Monk, you still hold the floor in our first round of debate against. How do you yield?
I yield to Senator Pritzlaw.
Senator Pritzlaw.
Senator Pritzlaw, on campus caucus, Madam Speaker, I have a motion. I move to strike, therefore be enacted 9, 10, and 11.
New score. Yes. Okay, seeing that motion's been made to strike, let it be enacted, 9, 10, and 11. Is there a second? Seeing that motion has been made and seconded, it is debatable and is amendable and will require a 2/3 vote. We will now move into debate on this amendment. We'll start debate against this amendment. Do I see debate against this amendment? I see Chairman Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
2 minutes and 30 seconds.
How do you say that? Okay, Chair Armstrong, R&R. So 9, 10, 11, what 9 does is it removes the Associate Director of Stu Act's veto on new committees. Enacted 10 makes the Finance Chair a permanent member of SAB, and enacted 11 makes the new student body vice president a permanent member of that. So I'll talk about why each of these three things are a really good idea. We can talk about their language if you'd like to, but I think they're all really good ideas. Number one, the STUAC associate director veto has never made sense to me. Every other portion of the process is contingent on the exec branch or the Senate, and I think it should remain that way. Moving into the SFAB stuff, up until this point, we've made a select committee on SFAB, and the findings of that committee, which I have to sit on, was that we need permanent members of SFAB to keep its interests consistent with the student government. And this does that. This makes sure that the finance chair generally has institutional knowledge of the Senate, and the student vice president, who hopefully has some knowledge of the executive branch, will be permanent members on SFAB, ensuring that SFAB remains consistent with SGA's general posture on finances. I think these are all three really great ideas. Like we said, we're trying to get all of our code changes done in the fall. That's been an express goal of Speaker Blackburn and myself all year long. I hope I've made that clear to you guys. And so, in order to save time and to get these things done in the fall, that's why they're here. We'd love to see them pass and they're all great ideas. With that, I yield to Chair Morrison.
Seeing that Chair Morrison has been yielded to, you will have 48 seconds beginning now.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chairman Morrison, Finance, County Senate. The one thing I wanted to add to Chair Armstrong's great points is just this does really non-controversial stuff that I think we all like. So if you're opposed to these being enacted, then vote against, but otherwise you should support it. That I look for.
The floor has been yielded to. We'll now move into the first round debate for this motion. There's seating debate for this motion. I saw Senator Russell.
First off, on campus caucus, I completely agree with both of them. Actually, I just don't think this belongs elections piece. If you heard the great explanation of for what these pieces do, they have literally nothing to do with elections at all. And I want to strike them out so that we can pass them separately and I can vote for them because I don't like the rest of this piece. I have some severe problems that I think we need to work out before we can pass the rest of this piece. These parts at the bottom here are pretty important, and I think it would behoove us to pass them rather than fail this piece, and then we aren't able to make these changes. This is what the good man Dr. Crockett was talking about in the open forum. Remove that. Let's make an amendment agreeable to exec, and then we can talk about the rest of this piece separately, and then we can make those changes early in the new year. No big deal. No harm, no foul. Again, vote for this amendment, not because you don't like the change, but because you think that this change does not belong in this piece. I think that's how I recontextualize under vote on this. So with that, I yield to Senator.
Senator Hurt has been yielded to. You have 1 minute and 19 seconds to be heard.
Senate. So you're probably okay, why are you standing over here now? Again, I'm going to elaborate why. I think, again, talking about conciseness of legislation, I've heard this multiple times again. They're talking about two different fields of what's going on. Filing forms, as well as the actual election process itself. Now, when you lump the two together, it makes for this. And this, I think, has now a lot of debate and a lot of contention, which I think is why other senators are wanting to send it back to committee and have further elaborations and debate. I think we should not be having this debate simultaneously all at once. It's a little bit too much, too much. We're like a dog chasing a car. What do we do when we get it? When we actually catch it? We don't know. And that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're kind of just like chasing a car and hoping to catch it. But when we pass this legislation, in the end, we're causing more harm than actual good. And I think when we separate the two, we can have solid discussion on both, where we both discuss filing forms and filing processes and financing, as well as simultaneously the electoral process and elections themselves. When we mix the two together, we're getting into the convoluted 28-page mess where a lot of people are kind of confused, and I'm kind of confused too, because we have amendments, now we have other amendments, now we have third amendments. Now, that's a lot of amendments, and we're adding more currently. So I think the best thing right now is to strike some things down where we have simpler legislation with better legislation. Vote to pass. Thank you.
With that, I do want to add a quick point of personal privilege, just because something was said incorrect as to the intent of the STUAC piece. That is not a veto power to director of student activities. That is making sure there's proper allocation of resources. And with that, we will now enter the second round of debate, starting with debate against. I call turn around first.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chairman Armstrong, thank you to your Blackburns for their correction. She's correct. There's no, the word veto does not appear in the piece. It does say that aspiring committees must obtain approval from the associate director of student activities that appropriate resources are available for the particular committee. Without that thumbs up, we cannot become a committee. The word veto isn't there though. That being said, I think these pieces are important. I would challenge the previous speakers that if the biggest gripe is that the piece is called elections and these aren't election things, then maybe we can move to amend the title of the piece to make it more palatable if that would solve the problem. I don't think that's true though. I think my suggestion would be that we need to keep these things and just have like please get it all done tonight. Because I think the whole piece is great as it stands now amended. But that being said, let me just talk a little bit more about why these things are really good. I talked earlier about how SFAB can sometimes wander away from SGA's stated commitments in terms of finances. And we've been dreaming on the select committee about how can we keep SFAB, or at least our representatives on SFAB, consistent with the stated goals of SGA. And what we landed on was that we needed people who have been around. Because in the current situation, random students who just see the bulk of the on apply typically get put on SFAB. And wind up making decisions that sometimes are not consistent with the greater picture of SGA. Our money that's SFAB largely determined. And so it made sense to the committee that putting people who've been around the block a little bit onto that would make sense. This makes sure that the finance chair, notable for their understanding of finances, and the student body vice president, an elected member of the student body, get put on SFAB every single time. It makes it a much more electorally representative body. And then for the STUAC thing, again, the word veto doesn't appear, but I would like for the student government to be able to determine which committees are on the student government. End of sentence. With that, I yield to Senator Applewhite.
Senator Applewhite, seeing that you have been yielded to, you have 20 seconds beginning at how.
Senator Applewhite Bushbull, really fast, I don't want to the elements of this. I think, as we all know, the vice president was just made an elected position, and the fact that this is an election refinement act, there is refinement having to do with the election by moving the vice president to the SFAB.
With that, we will now move into our next period debate against for this minute. There's some debate for this minute. I call Senator Steele first.
Madam Speaker, I add a motion to Senator Steele.
Please state your motion.
I motion to move this back to the Supreme.
Thank you.
Second.
Seeing this motion has been 20 seconds, it is unmovable, but is debatable and will require a 2/3 vote. We'll start with debate against this motion. I saw Senator Applewhite first.
Senator Applewhite Bushbull, what is it that I get to come back without even sitting down? That was pretty fun. What I want to say is we need to get this passed in order to make these election regulations stick for the election in the spring. I think it's so important that we get this done. I think it's also so important that we stick to the fact that this is the deadline that we've been putting on ourselves. I think we stick to our goals. I think that's what we need to do. We need to get passed tonight, or we need to fail it tonight. If y'all want to fail it, go ahead and fail it tonight. Let's do that. But I'm gonna vote to pass it. I yield to Chair Armstrong.
Senate Chair Armstrong has been to you 1 minute to 47 seconds to begin the seat.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Armstrong, R&R, have you said it? Hey, as the chair of the committee who's going to receive this, if this motion does pass, let me implore you to not pass this motion. We debated heavily to reach the conclusions that we did, before this. All three branches of the student government were represented by more than one person. We had 3 from the judicial court. The entire elections commission, to my knowledge, 3 members, not the whole commission, but many members of the election commission were present. The chief of policy, Ben Crockett, was there. Most of my committee and members of other committees were all there. That's about as representative of a body that you're going to get to debate this piece of legislation. And these were the amendments that we came up with. I would have implored members who have problems with it to have been at the meeting and to make their opinions known. And I would suggest that we don't do this again. Also, next week is Thanksgiving. We don't have another general meeting this semester. We can have a committee meeting during finals, but I don't want to do that. I don't think you want to do that. And I don't want to try to pass election regulations, legal or not, in the spring, right before the election season happens. I think it is critical that we do this tonight. If you need more time, let's move to extend time. But I think it's a terrible idea to move this back to committee and just take it out further. With that, I yield. Senator Horton.
Senator Horton, seeing that you've been yielded to, you will have 18 seconds to begin your copy.
Senator Horton, President Caucus, I'd like to say, I do not think we need to extend this any further. We've been working on this bill since October 3rd, when the first parts of this went out, when we started to work on it. And I think that this has been around for 2 months, it needs to stay longer, and I think it should have passed. So not with that.
All right, perfect time. With that, we'll now move into our last period of debate for this motion. They seem debate for this motion. I shall serve as first.
First off, on campus talk, the reason I brought my laptop down here is because I have an entire document of all the questions I still have about this piece. Just to give you some of the highlights, off-campus campaigning, class sessions being allowable for campaigns, building proctors not being notified about campaigns, food and beverage being allowed to use to bribe students, and a litany of others. And then if we continue discussion with these, I will make amendments and we can talk about them, and I'm okay with that. I was at the committee meeting. We talked about the budget the entire time because that was a very important part of this act and something I think we really needed to talk about. But there was a whole lot of other things that we did not get to during that meeting. It's a 2.5-hour meeting. And with the 28P paid act, I don't know if that's enough, especially when we just completely rewrote like half of it like 30 minutes ago. There's a lot more questions I have with this piece than I have answers. And yes, it is true. This is the last meeting before the end of the year, and we should, if we want to change elections, it's kind of now or never. Unfortunately, I think the committee kind of just missed its deadline, and I think if we want to submit some incomplete work that could have some real damage in terms of elections, you can vote to pass it. I just think that some of these clauses could be potentially very dangerous and could harm the reputation of SGA just by the ways that we can be implemented. If you want to talk more about that, we can go back into debate. We can get into that, but I think that debate is better had in committee because this is such a long act. I would have preferred if we had passed that other amendment first, so that way we didn't have to hold on all that too. But here we are. I think this is a debate better had in committee. And with that, I yield to Senator Chu, Chairman Chu, sorry.
Senate Chair Chu has the floor. You have 30 seconds.
Howdy, Senate. Howdy. Chair Chu, Student Services, real quick. So essentially, the reason why I'm debating to table this act is because we've been recently kind of getting the habit of passing legislation, but we still have questions about it. We did it with the past overall act, and we're trying to do it again. Essentially, like we should, if the Senate still has questions about this, any legislation, You shouldn't have to. Yes. What? I yield to Chair Marshall.
Madam Speaker, Chair, I'm proposing to have a motion
Please state your motion.
to extend debate by one round on each side.
Second.
Seeing that motion remain in second, but is undebatable but amendable on two grounds of debate, alternative to the debate, consent, do I see any objections? Seeing none, this motion does pass. With that, Chairman, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
I yield to you.
The floor has been yielded to, we will now move into our third and final round of debate against this motion, starting with Chairman Morrison. You have 2 and 30 seconds starting and out.
Chairman Morrison, Finance, how do you say it?
Hey.
I want to echo a comment that Senator Horton. This has been pieces of work done since October 3rd is the day I think it's been being worked on. For a very long time, we had a 2.5 hour long meeting. I don't know how many of y'all attended to meeting in which there was more, there was ample opportunity to bring concerns. If the conversation continued in terms of focusing on the budgets, and so many different changes have been made to appease unhappy parties. I would say this is a 28-page document. Not everyone is happy with every single line. I am not happy with this. I think when we look at it, for almost every single person, they consider it as good or bad. If you not even just more good than bad, that it is like, despite their concerns, it fixes tangible problems and makes elections freer, fair, and more accessible. I don't think another committee meeting fixes that, especially after all the conversations we've had and the unanimous vote that's coming out. I think anything tangibly changes, and I think out of respect for the elections process, we should pass this piece. I know I and many members of the board, and I encourage you to not force this committee, but to keep that
Chair Walnut has been yielded to, she will have 56 seconds beginning of how we.
Madam Speaker, I have a motion.
Please state your motion.
Chair Armstrong, rules and regs. It's going to be an experimental one, so my ag friends can correct me if I'm wrong. But I move to suspend the rules such that after this period of debate concludes, we move back into a secondary time of Q&A.
Second.
Consistent with the original time.
Yeah,
just explain this.
Yeah. So my motion is to suspend the rules, which, as my understanding of suspending the rules means to suspend the rules. So doing, when we are done with debate, instead of going immediately into voting, we just copy paste the original Q&A and slap it in there before voting, so that we can answer some more of these questions that people have about this piece before we vote.
Seeing that's been made and seconded, give me one.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, you can do it after. I mean, yeah, you can do it. Because the motion makes sense. I was worried about that. Yeah, I was out of. You got that.
Alright. Okay. Mr. Will Height has the floor. Unfortunately, Chairman Armstrong is out of order as you cannot interrupt the speaker in round debate. Mr. Will Height, you have the floor, 56 seconds.
Okay, so we're like, I just said, this is the service we have made, what did we just find out? Like, let's pass the bill.
No.
Hey, like, pass the bill, go to the selection cycle, see what happens, make amendments, that's literally what the court of Senate is, to just be passing. So I think that we can get with that to chair, or to Senator Applewhite.
See that Senator Applewhite has been yielded to, 32 seconds for the next one.
Senator Applewhite will have a motion for my debate. I move for an extra round of debate. Second.
Seeing that motion has been made and seconded, it is undebatable but amendable as 2 rounds of debate. We'll attempt to do this via general consent. Do I see any objections to the motion? Seeing that an objection has been made, we will now move into a formal voting and considered via a standing vote led by Pro Tem Raquel. All those in favor of the motion, please rise to your feet. Okay, okay. All those in favor of Senator Applewhite's motion to add an extra round of debate, please stand. Okay, this, make up your minds. All those opposed? Considering that this vote did require 2/3 by a vote of 12-8, this motion does fail. With that, Senator Applewhite, you have the floor for 50 seconds.
Senator Applewhite, I ultimately just want to say that this work that has been happened, that has been truly representative of all people, not just people that are on campus or off campus or in the board, but truly representative of all people. I think it just needs to be voted on tonight. I think the ability to get this into effect as soon as possible and really say what we say is important.
All right, with that, we will move into the last and final period debate for this motion. The C debate for this motion, I saw Senator Hurd first.
Senator Hawkins, howdy, Senate. Howdy. Awesome. Okay, I want to talk about 2 points. We talked about this being representative of all of every branch, and everyone was there. Was it like, oh, you all agree? The answer is no. Election commissioner, as well as Crockett, also have given their concern on the executive side about this legislation. And currently, we see members on both sides of the aisle in the current legislative body also have concerns about this thing. That's 2 branches that are already saying there's a lot of concerns about this legislation, which means, oh wait, we should maybe fail it. Also, I mean, also talk not to get on J-Corp, but the 3rd branch can't give an opinion. So the two branches have a split decide decision, and already not having agreement on this legislation is better to fail. Progress for the sake of progress ought to be discouraged. When we're trying to overcome and continue to promote progress for reform right before the elections, that doesn't sound smart. That sounds like the area where we have a lot of potential harm going on. We must be physically conservative on understanding this legislation. We must take slow increments to change, because when we make big, fast jumps, that harms individuals. Senators, I speak as a, again, lower income student, I have my concerns about this legislation as it is. When we make legislation convoluted, it makes for better, it makes for worse legislation. That is also found in political science. Longer constitutional documents actually decrease the government value. So when we're trying to make big legislation, it doesn't make it effective, y'all. So going into the actual legislation itself, let us fail this legislation, send it back to committee, have a healthy debate where we're actually able to have both sides, where we want a free market side, or if we want to have more restrictions. But we have not had that accurate debate, and we're still seeing that debate currently going on in the Senate body, which means that the committee failed at its job of having an inclusive government, and that's why we should fail on that front. And with that, I make to Senator Steele.
Seeing that Senator Steele has been yielded to, you will have 39 seconds to make a comment.
Senator Steele off King's Caucus. It reminds me of a quote from Winston Churchill that I remember. You can always count on Americans to do the right thing after they've exhausted all other options. Basically, the point of this is to say that we don't need to redo all of this, or we need to make sure we get this right the first time. We're going to do all of this stuff and we're going to get it wrong. We just need to send this back to committee so we can have a fuller idea on how to have these regulations, on to changing these regulations. If there's questions, answer questions. And we just need to send this back to committee.
Please wrap up in 1 sentence or less.
Because you can count on us to do the right thing. Let's do it first.
Yes, please switch your place.
It's directed to get. Oh, do you have concerns with the students? No, no.
I'm sorry, that's out of order. I'm sorry, Mr. Crockett, you don't have to. You may direct your question to SPD Coppinger, who does have it. Thank you so much. Please restate. Withdrew, but you rewrite all questions. With that, that concludes debate. We are now voting on the motion, which reminds everyone, the motion is to whether or not to send this back to committee. So to this via a standing vote led by Pro Tem Patel. All those in favor of the motion to send this piece back to committee, please rise as you're able. All those opposed? By the vote of 6 to 24, this motion does fail. Sir Pitzloff, you have the floor in our initial round debate against this. Senator Steele has the floor, sorry.
Are we not debating striking the fund?
Yes. But Senator Steele has the motion. Seeing the sorry, I need to find where. Quick sanities. Thanks for the first time we've been this deep in the weeds on something, and I want to make sure everyone is getting the correct time where needed. So with that, seeing that Senator Steele had yielded to the floor, we're still in the initial motion that Senator Pritzloff made on striking the last three let it be enacted. Since Senator Steele yielded to the floor, we will now enter the third and final round of debate on this motion, starting debate against. I call Chairman Armstrong first.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Armstrong, R&R. All right, guys. All right. So, a brief recap of where we are. We had the piece, we did our amendment, and then because Senator Pritzloff amended to strike, whereas enacted 9, 10, 11. Then, because Senator Steele brought up the amendment to send it back to committee, that failed. So now we're back in debate on Senator Pritzloff's motion to strike 9, 10, 11. Let me remind you why that's not a good idea. Those three pieces we've maintained are great ideas. Because Senator Pritzloff maintains they're great ideas. The argument against is that the rest of the piece is a bad idea and we're going to fail it, so let's get these out of there so they don't fail with it. I think that assumes a faulty premise that we're going to fail the thing. I think we're going to pass the thing. Now, let me remind you, these are three great ideas. Keeping the finance chair, the SVP on SFAB, realigns SFAB consistently, institutionally, with Senate and wider SBA's goals for finances. That's a great thing because they control our budget. I would like more money. And then the SUAC part, I think it's only makes sense with the spirit of the rules as it stands that SBA maintains its control over what committees are and are not in SBA. Now, while the word veto does not appear, it does allow the assistant director of student activities, or assistant vice president, whatever the title is, to not give a thumbs up on any committee, functional veto. So, I suggest we strike it. These three things are great ideas that make this piece better. And I will maintain it. It's not proper for me to debate on the rest of the piece right now, but I will maintain that the rest of the piece is a wonderful piece that we will keep continuing debating on after this. So please vote against this amendment to strike. With that, it goes to the floor. Thank you.
Seeing that the floor has been yielded to, we will now move into the third and final period debate for this motion. Next debate for this motion as Senator Pritzloff.
On campus caucus. Again, like to iterate, I kind of like these last three being enacted. I just don't think they belong in this piece. I mentioned my litany of issues that we can get into later, but the main point I'm trying to make is I don't want that debate about the elections part and reforming how we do elections to affect what we're doing with SFAB and these amendments. I really don't think that that's productive conversation or debate to be having right now, and I don't think that it's really going to help us. Even if we did pass this piece, I would still feel kind of weird that we passed an elections piece with these riders on it. I think it would be more responsible to have these separated and distinct and have these conversations separately and distinctly. I think putting these together kind of creates some problems. It's already creating problems. There's a whole lot of other things on this agenda that I would love to get to, and I wish we had sent this back to committee so that we could have gotten to a lot of those pieces. But here we are now. We want to keep talking about this, and that's fine. This is an important part of that conversation, and I think it's something that's good and important. And I don't want to see get caught up in this mess of debate and questions and concerns that we have for the rest of the elections piece, because I agree with everyone in this room. We want to get this right. I think there are some very good changes in this bill, and I think there are some very problematic changes in this bill. And I think we need to have that discussion, have that conversation. And if we're going to be here really late and we don't get this passed, I don't want this to get caught in the crossfire, and I don't want us to lose that. So let's just go ahead and strike it. We can pass that later. Heck, if we got through everything really quickly, I could type this up, throw it on a bill, bring it up in open session. So just like to throw that out there with that, and you'll see. Four.
Seeing that the floor has been yielded to, that concludes debate on this motion. We will now move into a period of voting led by Pro Tem Patel. Reminder, this requires a 2/3 vote to pass. All those in favor of the amendment of striking the last three let it be resolved, please rise as you're able. All those opposed? By a vote of 4-22, this motion does fail. With that, we are still in the first round of debate against the piece as a whole, and I believe Senator Pritzlaff, you have the floor.
Speaker, I have another motion. Senator Pritzlaff on campus caucus. I move and let it further be enacted for under section 2 subsection B. I move to unstrike that section. Subsection B. Yeah, let it further be enacted for the big titles, Article 5 restrictions, section 2 campaigning, and that subsection. Yep, I just want to unstrike that.
So one more time.
Yeah, so you're on the right page, subsection B. That whole section that we took out committee, put it back.
Seeing this motion has been made.
Oh, second.
Seeing this has been made and seconded, it is legal and will require again. Vote. We'll start debate against this motion and see any debate against this motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chairman Armstrong, R&R, seconded it, just so we can talk about it. Howdy, Senate. All right, we're now talking about off-campus campaigning. It's a great topic to talk about. I love talking about it. Up until now, off-campus campaigning has been strictly prohibited, not allowed. Problematically, that's really hard to police. The only time I've ever heard of it being almost adequately policed was, interestingly enough, with Mr. Crockett's Senate campaign several years ago. And what had happened was Mr. Crockett had made several large business cards urging people to vote for him, and he was going to distribute those to friends. Now, one of those friends, thinking they were being helpful, put those on doors in Callaway, where she lived. Now that's a problem because that constitutes campaigning on campus, so we were able to get someone to run around and take them all down before it was reported and save the day and say because Mr. Crockett's campaign. But this is only one example of something being almost adequately policed. There are many other examples of people effectively campaigning off campus and not being policed. Now, I think that we should just take the rule away. If people are campaigning off campus anyways, let's just let them campaign off campus. So we talked a lot about student engagement and voter turnout. Wouldn't it follow that we would get better engagement in our elections and better voter turnout if more people interacted with our campaigns off campus? I will also suggest, I'm going to do this delicately while remaining within the rules of decorum, that I think we represent all students, and representing some students at the cost of other students. In this case, in striking this, representing the interests of on-campus students against the interests of off-campus students is not what we're here to do. We can support on-campus students and off-campus students by allowing off-campus students to campaign to as effectively as off-campus students. As an off-campus senator myself, I think that's important. So I would urge you to vote against unstriking this speech and allow our elections to be more robust and reach more people. With that, I yield to Senator Steele.
Yes, consider your point.
I believe we are in your.
Seeing that quorum has been called, we'll now move into a roll call vote, not roll call vote, a roll call count by Pro Tem.
All right. Y'all guys know the drill.
Speaker Blackburn,
Howdy.
Chairman Armstrong. Howdy. Chairman Chu. Howdy. Chairman Morrison. Howdy. Chairman Gaddis. Chairman Bass. Chairman Cornell.
Howdy.
Chairman Applewhite.
Howdy.
Chairman Wilhite. Senator Fisher. Howdy. Senator Vaughn. Senator James. Senator Owen. Howdy. Senator Williams. Senator Roscoe. Senator Bounds. Senator Garcia.
Howdy.
Senator Jusino.
Howdy.
Senator Oberon. Senator Sanchez. Senator Vernon. Senator Daniel. Senator Sanders. Senator Wright. Senator Hunt. Senator Gilliard. Senator Maynard.
Howdy.
Senator Moore. Senator Bradley. Howdy. Senator Gaines. Senator Kim. Howdy. Senator Tucker.
Howdy.
Senator Applewhite. Howdy. Senator Burrell. Senator Van Hoosier. Senator Booth.
Yeah, howdy.
Senator Collinsworth. Senator Edgington. Senator Hughes.
Howdy.
Senator Coatson. Senator Owens. Senator Fritzloff.
Howdy.
Senator Conrad. Senator Duncan. Senator Flores. Senator Kowalski. Senator Hoffman. Senator House. Senator Hurt. Senator Leahy. Senator Monk. Senator Norton. Senator Oliphant. Senator Owens. N.K. Owens. Senator Puckett. Senator Ratcliffe. Senator Schaefer. Senator Steele.
Howdy.
Senator Sloan.
Howdy.
Senator Hudson Smith. Senator Teets. Senator Horton. Senator Rathko.
Madam
Speaker, a point of personal privilege.
Yes, so I'll put the town I refuse.
Chair Front Runner, howdy. I would like to point out, as the results of this are being discussed, if the quorum is under, or our attendance is under quorum in this meeting adjourns immediately, there will be at least 10, I think more, including open session, pieces that will not be discussed tonight, some of which are time sensitive. And so that's quite a bit of legislation that will not be discussed until the spring, making some of them redundant because of this short-sighted, ill-conceived, and unprofessional motion. Just want everyone to be aware of the consequences of what's about to happen, why we don't do this. Thank you.
We are at four. 5-1, we are at four. I urge everyone. We have a lot of work to do considering it is almost 9:30 and we are on our second item of appointment. Not even touching consent agenda new business and consent. So with that, we are getting back into our agenda and who has the floor?
You
Steven, you have the floor? Steven, the floor has been yielded to. We are in the first round debate for Senator Kritzloff's amendment, correct?
I think you just yielded.
Second round debate against for Senator Kritzloff's amendment. The seat and debate against this amendment. I see Senator Applewhite.
Yes, Senator Applewhite, Bush School. I just wanted to bring attention to one thing really fast. I don't think the only residences that should be able to be controlled should be core and the on-campus dorms, which the rules of the on-campus dorms, for those of y'all that might not know, have been for the longest time that the RH8 resident is in charge of that. And I think because of any conflicts of interest that may occur by someone in a position such as core staff, or if you will, an on-campus dorm, the people in charge of those rules, I don't think that should be contained to merely those two positions. I think there should be off-campus campaigning because of this. And so to have someone may have a conflict of interest propose this amendment seems very out of pocket to me, for lack of a better term. With that, yield to you. Senator Bradley.
Senator Bradley, number 2, you have 1 minute and 23 seconds during your comment.
Hi, Senator Bradley here. Guys, let's just get our act together. Let's figure this out. We've talked about this enough. We have been here for too dang long. Okay, guys? That's it. I yield to the floor.
The floor has been yielded to. We'll now move into the second round debate for this motion. I see debate for this motion and see Senator Kirkland.
First of all, I think we need to revisit the motion first on this, because I didn't love that. My intention with this is not to preference on-campus campaigning. I do recognize my positionality and how that could appear to be accomplished, but genuinely my concern is why this exists in the first place. And I think kind of the whole point of having campus elections is to have campaigning. If we want to make a new provision that disallows all campaigning in residence halls, period, I could see the argument for that, and I would probably even vote for that. I just think allowing off-campus campaigning opens up the door for a myriad of problems. I'm sympathetic to the point where, like, you hand a business card to someone off campus, like, for 1 second, and like that can get you disqualified. I don't think that's necessarily fair, but I don't think, especially with the rest of the rules that we made, extending budgets and things like that, having yard signs on every corner. If I'm a College Station resident, I don't want to see somebody resident campaign in my front yard or something like that, right? That's my concern with this. It's not because I think on-campus residences are the only places where you should be allowed to campaign. I just think that off-campus campaigning, it opens up a huge window of possibilities and opportunities that I think could, for good or bad, potentially create some issues. And that's my bigger concern is when we open the door so much for this, there's opportunities for rules to be broken and for our image for SGA elections to be kind of tarnished. And I don't want that to become the case. I'd rather keep elections on campus. You can debate that idea, but that's my genuine stance. And with that, I yield. Senator Hughes.
Seeing that Senator Hughes has been yielded to, she'll have 29 seconds to begin audition.
Alrighty, howdy Senate. Howdy. Let me just start by saying I'm also sympathetic to Chair Archer's point. I can understand why, since a sizable portion of us are off campus and probably more of us are not necessarily in the off-campus caucus, but off-campus students in general, that off-campus campaigning is important. I just don't see a discussion that might be necessary with campaigning off-campus being had if we are just striking it without proposing some sort of stating some sort of regulation that may be necessary if we are campaigning off campus, like Senator Kritzloff said. And with that,
Seeing that time has expired, we'll now move into our final round debate. Hearing debate against IC Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Armstrong, R&R, howdy Senate. Let's address a couple things. First and foremost, we do have regulations about campaigning writ large. This is kind of the rest of this piece. The rest of the amendments regulate physical campaigning on campus and on campus should this be stricken. Let me just paint a very clear picture. Right now, there is a group of students who can be campaigned to where they live. There is another much larger group of students who cannot be campaigned to where they live. Maker of the motion expressly represents the benefits from one of those groups, the one that is being campaigned to. It stands to reason that if, and we're going to speak in hypotheticals here, if there were a person who is on campus and represents on-campus students and might proceed in the future running for an elected position, they wouldn't want people living off campus to be campaigning to, because that very quickly opens up the electoral block to a lot of people.
Point of order.
State your point.
That comment is clearly dilatory. Everyone knows who you're talking about.
I was hypothetical. And this is on the merits of the image.
Please state what you said.
What I said was hypothetically, a hypothetical statement.
Senator, Chairman Gaddis. The visitor did not state anything on
You can try to say that it's up here.
To restate the question and address what Senator Fritzoff said, I didn't hypothetical we do it all the time. We were just talking about hypothetical earlier electorals. I wasn't talking about any particular person. A hypothetical candidate or potential candidate who represents on-campus students with the same benefit from restricting off-campus campaigning. As an off-campus student myself and someone who's been elected 4 times or 3 times to represent off-campus students, I think it's high time that we equally campaign to the full student body of Texas A&M, not just those that live on campus. With that, I yield. Senator Sloan.
Being that Senator Sloan has been yielded to you 1 minute and 6 seconds, we can have.
Hi, Senate.
Hi.
Just a couple quick notes. Senator Sloan off campus. 79% of students Texas A&M live off campus. I see yard signs all the time for city councilors that I particularly don't agree with. I believe that it would be very appropriate for potential student body candidate or student body president candidates to be able to campaign in areas such as the historic district or have a sign in a Northgate apartment complex. I don't think it's super outlandish. I believe that this contributes to this bill heavily and makes it really good. Honestly, I would love to see these kinds of yard signs happen around where I live. Also, I know that I represent the off-campus caucus, and I'm also Class 27 president. And every single person I've spoke to within my constituency believes that this would be beneficial. This would allow places such as Brewery Road to be campaigned on. As we all know, the Corps of Cadets.
Up in 1 sentence or less.
The Corps of Cadets is able to support candidates. I believe that it would empower other student organizations that live off campus to be able to make their voice heard when it's tangible.
With that, we will now move into the third and final sound debate for this motion. Do I see debate for this motion? Seeing none, we'll now move into a period of voting. We'll do this via a standing vote led by Pro Tem Patel. All those in favor of the motion, please rise as you're able. All those opposed? A vote of 0 to 23, this motion does. With that, we are still in the first round of debate against this piece, and Senator Fritzoff, you have the floor. Having you.
Senator Fritzoff on campus stocks. I don't make you on campus. I'm sorry, that was an implication. That was not an implication I was trying to make. So apologies if I offended anyone. I have more amendments with this that I really don't want to make. Because it's late and there's a lot of important legislation I think we need to get to. And I think I made my point clear that I think there's more considerations to be had with this piece. I'd be open to sending this back to committee one more time. I understand the problems with that too, but we already had that vote, so kind of at this point, I'm willing to see where the rest of the discussion goes, but I think I've said the majority of my piece. Like I said, I've got some more concerns, but I think I've addressed a lot of the main ones. The last one, notwithstanding, we're getting to some of my more niche concerns. So that's fine. With that, I think it's through Or you. Yield to the floor. Madam Chair,
Yes.
I know the previous question.
Being that a motion has been made and seconded, it is undebatable and unamendable and will require a 2/3 vote where it comes to the seat of general consent. Do I see any objections to the motion in the previous question?
I object.
Did that be made or not vote on this via a vote led by Clerk Patel? All those in favor of moving the previous question? All those opposed? By a vote of 27-0, motion does pass. We'll now immediately move into a period of voting on Senate Act 7707, the Election Confinement Act. Those considered via a standing vote led by Pro Tem Patel. All those in favor of passing Senate Act 7707, please rise if you're able. All those opposed? A vote of 25-6, this piece does pass. With that concludes old business. We'll now move into our consent agenda. We'll now consider the 6 pieces that are listed in consent agenda. The floor is only open for motions. Do I see any objections to the consideration of our consent agenda? Seeing none, these 6 pieces do pass. With that, we'll now move into new business, starting with Senate Resolution 7728, the Brigadier General retired Joe E. Ramirez 79 resolution. If the author will please come to the floor, you will have 10 very speedy minutes.
Madam Speaker, I have a motion.
Yes, please state your question.
Chairman Wilson, I move to suspend the rules and immediately vote on this piece.
Second.
See, that motion has been made. It is. Undebatable, unamendable, and will require a 2/3 vote. Will attend to be a general consent. Do I see any objections to this motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass. We'll now immediately move into voting on this piece. We'll attempt to do this via voice vote. All those in favor of passing SR 7728, please say aye. All those opposed? It is declared to the ayes have it, and this piece does pass. With that, we'll now move to the consideration of Senate Resolution 7729, the Lone Star Showdown Resolution.
Have you sent Pro Tem Patel? I'm gonna make this quick. So a little quick history. Back when we used to play TU every single year, we'd pass a resolution, kind of just showing what we're gonna do and showing them why we're just so much better than they are. So let me just read a little bit of what we got here. I'll kind of make it really quick. Whereas after 12-year hiatus, back as the Lone Star Showdown goes back 130 years. Whereas for the 2 largest universities in the state, and both leading the SEC in scoring records. Whereas our Texas Tech football team is doing great this year, whereas Colorado the reckless toughest place in the football, not Texas, not the whole world. Whereas football fans, the loudest, the proudest, most passionate fan base in college football, therefore, led you further resolve. Texas Tech University, Student Senate, applauds the overall impact of Texas Tech and UT and their student governments. Whereas led you further resolve, and Student Senate encourages all current former Aggies to participate in all the festivities of the game. And let it be further resolved, number 3. We are going to show those trash throwing, bandwagon, brain dead, no tradition having, no class having, classic cowboy hat wearing, sloppy beach mashup having, blue hair having, overrated actors, a celebrity guest having, ugly school color wearing, stupid fights on the plan, Neville baby backup quarterback having, fake TV channel having, fake college town living, rowdy protesters and fans having, arrogant, illiterate T-sips from that smelly dirt pile southwest of College Station, what SEC ball really looks like, and who the flagship program of this great state of Texas really is. And let it be further resolved. Texas A&M University Student Senate strongly encourages all Aggies to stand as the 12th man
of the Fighting Texas A&M football team as they beat the ever living, ever loving, compound, complex hell out of TU. Any questions?
I see Senator Monk.
Senator, welcome to our campus caucus. Is there a reason it says the University of Texas? Texas University.
Yes.
Yes, I would.
Yep, that's your good. Any other questions? Seeing none, take off the first time. Yes, please take your motion.
Chair Armstrong Garner, I move to suspend the rules to immediately vote on this piece.
Seeing that motion is made and seconded is undebatable, unamendable, and will require a 2/3 vote. Let's pursue the general consent. Do I see any objections to this motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass. We will now immediately move to the voting on Senate Resolution 7729. Consensus via voice vote. All those in favor of passage, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Is it command chair? The ayes have it, and this piece does pass. We'll now move to consideration of Senate Resolution 7731, the NACUR Conference Support Resolution. Please come to the floor.
Madam Speaker, out of motion.
Yes, this is your motion.
Chairman Morrison, Finance, I move to suspend the rules and immediately begin voting on SR 7731. Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. It is undebatable and unamendable and will require a 2/3 vote. We'll attempt to give general consent. Do I see any objections to the motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass. We will now immediately be voting on Senate Resolution 7731. We'll attempt to via a voice vote. All those in favor of passage, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it, and this piece does pass. With that, we will now be moving into a period of open session, and I will seek the chairship to Pro Tem Patel. Pro Tem Patel, I have a motion.
State your motion.
Speaker Blackburn, I move to consider the ticket pool resolution.
Second. All right, seeing as the motion has been made and seconded, this is undebatable and amendable. Debatable and amendable, requires a majority.
Yeah.
I guess we are moving to a period of voting, debate starting with against. Does anybody debating against this motion? Seeing none, we'll move to debate for this motion. Do I see any debate for this motion? Seeing none, we'll go into the second round of debate against this motion. Do I see any against this motion? Seeing none, we'll go into the second round of debate for. Do I see any for this motion? Seeing none, I'll declare this debate one-sided, and we'll move directly into voting. We're trying to do this by general consent. Does anybody object? Seeing none, this motion does pass.
Senator Fisher, college back, can you pass a resolution by general consent?
This is not general consent to pass the piece, it's to consider it in open session.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
All right, the authors are now open to a 10-minute period of presentation.
Yes, howdy, Speaker Blackburn. We'll make this very quick. Obviously, it is not usual to see myself and SVP Coppinger offering a piece. However, we felt that it is the best way to show you and really express our opinions as well as the Senate to the government as a whole opinions moving forward, as well as to support our advocacy efforts. And so SB Coppinger will speak more to, but the purpose of this piece is to acknowledge kind of ticket pool itself, and especially what happened this past Monday and Tuesday in regards to the Texas ticket pool, and then supporting with the survey data and kind of what it looks like going forward.
Yes, the reason we feel extremely confident in this, obviously people may have different opinions on what the solutions to ticket pool may be or what they may not be. But we feel very confident that this is the right direction due to the fact that we have been spending the past few months running a survey. The survey was sent out to 4,000 sports bets holders, 4,000 non-sports bets holders. We had a 34% response rate and 11% response rate. Respectively, anybody who has run a survey will tell you that is with almost 99% degree confidence that has taken over the market population. And the results came back that we were 61 or 63% in favor of the student body moving to the online system.
When it comes to student government, I feel adamant that it's our job, obviously, to be the voice of the students, and that is a very loud voice, in my opinion. And we've seen what has happened this week, and I'm sure you, as many, and including myself, have heard very clearly what the desire of the student body is, and so I believe that it's our best interest of student association to be as strong as possible for a solution as quickly as possible.
And with that, we send over the question.
But that is now to a period of question and answer. If I have a period, do I see any questions for senators? I see Senator Mullen.
Senator Delmer, I'll take this topics. This isn't really specifically about a Tinder resolution, but for that poll that says 60% of people support an online ticket poll, what I saw is that compared to people that think it should stay the same, with like 34% stay the same, 66 support online, or is it people support online over solutions to the current system doesn't involve being the fine system?
Based on the question and the result, it said if the, and this isn't exactly what it's generally what it said. If the online system met all of your desires, which they had listed out what their desires would have been in the question beforehand, then they were to answer the response if they preferred an online system, if they preferred an in-person system, and then or if they wanted to that led to the response that we see 63%, 31% responded in favor of in-person, and 6% were neutral. To answer your question.
Thank you.
I have Senator Hughes.
I guess this is part of the clarification, I guess. If we are going to move to online, are you guys thinking about having some way for there to be groups pulling together, or is it just like an individual ticket pull just online through your concept?
That's a great question, and I hope this answers your all's question as well. I cannot without certainty, I cannot sit up here certainty today and say we will move to online system. We are going to advocate for the district as part of the population and find a solution. But the data also did come back and say, be pulling with your friends, so that is the number one priority. The mobile friendly design is the number one priority. Second highest priority. Third was the classification breakdown of seniors Monday, juniors Tuesday, vice versa going all the way down to the last one was being able to say that. And so we have included that, and that is part of the process that we highly emphasize have been emphasized at this point. There are other factors that we're going to consider as well. We need to look at going through an RFP process. Well, first off, we need administration to be on board with that. Then it'll be an RFP process. Then we would be able to see what factors are at play and then be able to make recommendations.
I have Chairman Chu.
Chair Chu, I am hoping really want to talk to the commander. Maybe not.
We did
it, but anyways, well, the question is, what did he have to say about this? Cause like,
when I talked to DeAndre, we had talked a lot about the survey data and we both come upon the agreement based off my conversation. Speak directly for him, but he thought the data was very strong. And he also thought that there was cause for concern in regards to the gas pass system and how that correlated to Wednesday being involved in course. So he was on board with that change based off of what we could see.
I'd say consistently across student leaders, the emphasis is one, advocating on behalf of the student body, and that really shows that. The second being protecting our students and their health and safety, and those two things together are the primary concerns that you're choosing.
I have Senator Hu.
Senator Bill and health. You mentioned health and safety. I mean, isn't that like you're camping outside? Like, shouldn't you be cognizant of like you're outside? It could be cold or it could be hot, so therefore you should be prepared for whatever happens. So is that something that is really that much of a concern, or is that just you're just trying to prevent that, or what's
I mean, we live in Texas. Extreme weather is not against us. I think the key difference is that you're putting students in high stress scenario in addition to extreme weather. When you are without those high stress situations, we can all bear extreme weather like it's no big deal. We're used to it every day. So when you add on a high stress situation like that, like staying at 30+ hours camping, being in tight quarters, and all of that, everyone wants to do something, and their fear of losing their ticket or spot or whatever, you add all of that together, that's when health and safety becomes an initial concern, a primary concern because now you just taken out the sole factor of a treatment measure, you just added all these additional factors that have compounded.
And then, yeah, I know, I'm just saying, what you said in a different way, but. Well, we talk about this with any administrator that talked about this since Monday. That there are a lot of external factors that are going to play, but you also have to recognize that there was this system created an environment in which created, congestion of human beings in a very highly crowded space. This was an environment that was created as a result. It's asking people looking at
Chairman Armstrong. Senator Vernon.
Senator Vernon, Francis, when was this survey conducted and how many people participated in it? And how did you guys get the word out about it?
So we went through the SAPAR system, survey and research department within the student affairs.
Is there a answer once it's please?
A lot of people that survey.
With that, we thank the presenters for their time. We'll now move into. Now move into debate for this piece, starting with first round again. Stage motion.
Senator Fritzoff on campus caucus, I'm going to open spot.
Second.
Seeing as motion has been made and seconded, it's undebatable and now requires majority vote, 5 minutes by general consent. Does anybody object? Open sponsorship to this piece. Seeing none, this motion does pass. Do you have the floor for? Alright, seeing as the floor is yield to, we move into the first round of debate for this piece. Any debate piece? Seeing none, we'll move into the second round of debate against this piece. Any debate against this piece? Seeing none, we'll move into the second round of debate for. Do I see any debate for this piece? Seeing none, the opinion of the chair that this debate has become one-sided, and we will move into voting. We'll try and do this via voice vote. All those in favor of passing this piece, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it, and this piece does pass. Chair, back to Speaker Blackburn.
Yes, please, sir.
Consider the regularly given challenge resolution.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded, it is debatable and unamendable and will require a two-thirds vote. We will now do this debate, but it's simply against this motion. Seeing none, we'll now move into the first round of debate for this motion, by seeing debate for this motion. Seeing none, we'll now move into the second round of debate against this motion, by seeing debate against this motion. Seeing none, as the candidate said, the debate has become one-sided, and now immediately voting will attempt to do this via general consent. Do I see any objections to this motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. How did Senate? Chair Armstrong, part of our. So if you didn't know, you probably don't know, that's all for. The Association of Former Students is partnering with the University of Texas Alumni Association to hold a giving competition this week, leading up to the big rivalry game, wherein we will try to beat them by getting a lot of people to donate money to the potential former students. I think it's a great thing. The association reached out earlier to ask that we write a resolution suggesting to students and former students that they partake in social or boost the signal of the giving competition. And so we have a resolution that does that. With that, open questions.
The presenters are now open for a period of questions. Do I see any questions from the presenters? Seeing none, we thank them for their time. It's a voting on this piece. Not voting, sorry. Hey. State your motion. Seeing that this motion is made and seconded, it is undebatable and unamendable and will require a two-thirds vote. Will attempt to do via general consent. Do I see any objections to this motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass. We will now immediately move into voting on the piece. Will attempt to do via voice vote. All those in favor of passing the rivalry giving challenge resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it, and the case does pass. We're still in open session. Please state your motion. Seeing that motion has been made and seconded, it is favorable and unamendable and will require a majority vote. We're now in debate. Turn debate against, proceed debate against this motion. Seeing none, we'll now move to debate for, Darcy, debate for this motion. Seeing none, we'll now move to debate against this motion, against this motion. Seeing none, this be opinion of the chair, debate has become one-sided, we'll now move to the voting, both motions be general consent. Do I see any objections to the motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass. The author will now,
Speaker, I have a motion.
please state your motion.
Chairman Morrison, Finance, and suspend the rules and immediately consider this office. Second.
See the motion has been made and seconded, it is undebatable and unamendable and will require a 2/3 vote. Will purposes be a general consent, do I see any objections to this motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass. Yes, state your motion.
Senator Robert Hopkins, motion to suspend the rules of retroactively sponsorship.
Second.
Second.
Okay. The motion has been made and sufficiently seconded, it is undebatable and unamendable and will require a 2/3 vote. It will accept to this via general consent. Do I see any objections to the motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass. And so seeing that sponsor is open, President Patel will take care of that. We'll now moving into voting on this piece. We'll attempt to this via a voice vote. All those in favor of passing the Gilbert Leadership Conference resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and this piece does pass. There's still an open session. Please state your motion. I wish to consider this conference resolution.
Second.
See, this motion has been made and seconded, it is debatable and unamendable, will require a majority vote. We'll now move to debate on this motion, starting to debate against. Do I see any debate against this motion? Seeing none, we'll now move on to debate for. Do I see any debate for this motion? Seeing none, we'll now move to the second round of debate against this motion. Do I see any debate against this motion? Seeing none, it's been a chair debate has become one-sided. We'll now immediately move to voting. We'll attempt to be a general consent. Do I see any objections to the consideration of this motion? Seeing none, this motion does pass. The author will now have 10 minutes to present.
Speaker, I have a motion.
Please state your motion.
Chairman Morrison, Finance, to suspend the rules and immediately vote on this piece.
Seeing this motion has been made and seconded, it is undebatable and undebatable and will require a 2/3 vote. We'll attempt to be a general consent. Do I see any objection to this motion? Seeing none, this motion does. We'll now immediately move into voting on the seal conference resolution. We'll attempt to be a voice vote. All those in favor of passing the seal conference resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it and this piece does pass. Please state your motion. This motion has been made and seconded, it is undebatable and unamendable, and will require a majority vote. We'll attempt to do this via general consent. Do I see any objections to the closing voting session? Seeing none, this motion does pass. With that, we will now move into committee reports, starting with Pro Tem Patel. Do I see any questions for Pro Tem Patel? Seeing none, we thank him for his time. With that, we'll move to our rules and regulations chair. Do I see any questions for Chairman Armstrong? Seeing none, we thank him for his time. With that, we'll move to our student services chair. Do I see any questions for Chairman Chu? Seeing none, we thank him for his time. With that, we'll move to our community relations chair. Do I see any questions for Gaddis? Seeing none, we thank him for her time. With that, we'll move to our legislative relations chair. Do I see any questions for Chair Bass? Seeing none, we thank him for his time. With that, we'll move to our academic affairs chair. Do I see any questions for Chair Cornell? Seeing none, we thank her for her time. With that, we'll move to our constituency affairs chair. Do I see any questions for Chair Applewhite? Seeing none, we thank her for her time. With that, we move to our diversity and inclusion chair. Do I see any questions for Chair Wilhite? Seeing none, we thank her for her time. And with that, we'll move to our executive director of operations. Do I see any questions for EDO Herbert? Seeing none, we thank her for her time. With that, we'll move to executive reports, starting with SVP Coppinger.
Hi, Senate. Executive cabinet is working really hard. We've got those projects we are working on, making really good progress. I'm excited to see how the rest of it goes. Okay.
Do I see any questions for the SVP? Seeing none, we thank him for his time. With that, we'll move to our Chief Justice.
Howdy, it's howdy. Jake work's going really well.
Chief Justice now is the questions. I see Chairman Armstrong.
Chair Armstrong, R&R. Chief Justice Levenwell. The J Court was brought up quite a bit tonight.
It was.
How do you feel getting so much attention from the legislative body?
I'm always so flattered. What is that compared to? Chris Jenner quote, I think press is good press.
This officer, there was a comment made tonight about, something along the lines of you guys really appreciating, the action or something like that. What's your comment on that? Do you really, what was the comment being that? Whenever my, another thing is also obviously, cases, let's say.
Wow.
What did,
What's your favorite? That's so funny you ask that, because I mean, no matter how this new election regulations are good, I mean, people are confused, that's what, that puts me just.
Any other questions for Chief Justice? Seeing none, we thank both Chief Justice Levenwell and Kate Coppinger for their time. The chairship to Pro Tem Patel to deliver a brief executive.
All right, with that, Peter Blackburn is now open to a period of presentation.
Yeah, howdy Senate. I want to thank y'all for bearing with me. I know that this was a lot of a meeting, but I'm really proud of y'all for that because I think that's what we're here to do. And there was struck deadlines, so time I had to stop and make sure we're all in the right spots. So I want that to be because I really believe in the process. I want to make sure we're following everything correctly. So always correct me if you think I'm not following something correctly. So I want to follow everything. Really proud of y'all. We are, I believe, after this at 54 pieces of legislation, which I believe, I can fact check myself over, but I believe that's more than the previous passed in this legislature. So I'm so proud of y'all and so you can do good work. With that, I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving. I hope the hell out of finals and we will see you back next Thursday. That answers my questions.
I would like to speak with an open and period question answer. If there's any questions, I see Senator Owen.
Hey, great resolution. My question for you is how would you feel about forming around my sciences? How would you feel about forming a special committee to come up with recommendations to give to the football and athletics and foundation of ways?
I think it's definitely a conversation that can be had. I'm not saying no or yes or not. It's a much larger conversation, but I'm open to the conversation, and I think other parties would also be open to that conversation as well.
Thank you.
That's one more question for the speaker. All right, with that, we thank her for her time.
Right, with that, this meeting is almost over. We will now move to the period closing roll call led by President Trump.
All right, third time today, that's where everyone was filled up. Peter Blackburn.
Hi.
Pete Coppinger. Howdy. Chief Justice Levenwell.
Howdy.
Chairman Armstrong. Howdy. Chairman Chu. Howdy. Chairman Morrison. Howdy. Chairman Gaddis.
Howdy.
Chairman Bass. Chairman Cornell.
Howdy.
Chairman Adam White. Chairman Wilhite. EDO Herbert. Senator Fisher. Howdy. Senator Vaughn. Senator James. Senator Owen. Howdy. Senator Williams. Senator Roscoe. Senator Bound. Senator Garcia.
Howdy.
Senator Jusino.
Howdy.
Senator Oberon.
Howdy.
Senator Fan. Howdy. Senator Sanchez. Senator Vernon.
Howdy.
Senator Daniel. Senator Sanders. Senator Wright. Senator Hunt. Senator Gilliard. Senator Mayer. Senator Moore. Senator Bradley.
Senator Gaines, Senator Kim, Senator Tucker, Senator Applewhite, Senator Burrell, Senator Van Asher, Senator Booth, Senator Collinsworth, Senator Edgington, Senator Hughes,
Howdy.
Senator Copeland,
Howdy.
Senator Jojo Owens,
Howdy.
Senator Pritlock, Senator Conrad, Senator Duncan, Senator Flores, Senator Kowalski, Senator Hoffman, Senator House, Senator Hurt, Senator Leahy, Senator Monk, Senator Norton, Senator Oliphant, Senator Annie Kate Owens, Senator Puckett, Senator Ratcliffe, Senator Schaefer, Senator Steele, Senator Sloan, Senator Smith, Senator Teets, Senator Horton, Senator Rasko. Thank you all.
With that, okay, the hell out of Auburn, the hell out of Texas, the hell out of Texas.
Sorry, I gotta get out of this part.
I know.
Good drawing me. No.